Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Diana will do so just in one moment.
Yep.
Through to you, Mr. Mayor, the meeting is live.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting on Monday, September 20th, 2021, Federal Election Day for Election 44. Due to COVID-19 and recommendations by Waterloo Region Public Health to exercise physical distancing, City Hall is open for select services. Members of the public have been invited to participate in meetings electronically by accessing the meeting live stream video at kitchener.ca/watchnow. While in-person delegation requests were not feasible at this time, members of the public were invited to submit written comments or participate electronically and can do so by contacting delegation at kitchener.ca. Any written comments received ahead of this meeting have been circulated to Council and will form part of the public record of this meeting. As we begin all of our meetings, we'll begin with the land acknowledgement, and we do so today reflecting on September 30th next week, which I'll be speaking to momentarily, as the first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. This evening, we gather on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. We recognize our responsibility to serve as stewards for the land and honor the original caretakers who came before us. Our community is enriched by the enduring knowledge and deep-rooted traditions of the diverse First Nations, Métis, and Inuit in Kitchener today. Thursday, September 30th is Orange Shirt Day and Canada's first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Many residents across Kitchener, the province, and the country will be marking the occasion with learning, reflection, and acknowledgement. Orange Shirt Day first began in British Columbia to witness and honor the healing journey of residential school survivors. The orange shirt represents the story of Phyllis Webstad, who was given a new orange shirt by her grandmother for her first day of residential school. Phyllis did not get to wear her orange shirt proudly, as it was immediately taken away, along with all of her personal possessions, a common practice at residential schools. Understanding the impact of residential schools and colonialism in Canada means we must acknowledge the cultural harm and erasure imposed on First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. On Orange Shirt Day, we all have an opportunity and a responsibility to learn more about this history and commit to meaningful action. Some ways for non-Indigenous people to do this includes learning about Indigenous people's relationship with the land, reading Indigenous literature, supporting Indigenous artists, having meaningful conversations with family, friends, and colleagues, challenging people who act in racist or discriminatory ways, and committing to personal change and allyship. Along with members of City Council, I am personally committed to reconciliation by providing leadership to integrate inclusive best practices across the city. City Council is committed to continue learning to deepen our understanding of the history and current reality of Indigenous peoples, and addressing long-standing systemic anti-Indigenous racism that exists in our community and in our organization. This year, to mark the first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, Kitchener has developed both internal and external initiatives in response to our commitment to continued learning. We are supporting Indigenous groups and organizations to deliver Indigenous-led events to recognize this day, including free access to public spaces and through financial support. raising consciousness within our own organization by preparing and distributing curated learning resources that staff, councils, and others can dive into, encouraging self-reflection and personal commitment to reconciliation, and using our organizational voice and platforms to communicate broadly with our community at large about the importance and significance of this day. I encourage all Kitchener residents to take time on September 30th to honor Indigenous voices. Step back, reflect, learn, and listen. Honor the unique and diverse cultural heritage of First Nation, Inuit, and Métis peoples, and celebrate the important and ongoing contributions of Indigenous communities to our community and to our country. And now I would invite all who are able to stand for the singing of O Canada, and I'll remind council to turn off their cameras as they stand, please. Thank you, everyone. And I'd be remiss at the playing of the national anthem to not remind everyone that today is federal election day. And if you haven't been out to vote yet, the polls are open in Ontario until 9:30. And we certainly encourage you to go and exercise your vote. And with that, I will move to item number 2 in the agenda, minutes for approval, and it's been moved by Councillor Marsh that the minutes of the regular meeting held August 23rd and special meetings held August 23rd and September 13th as mailed to the mayor and councillors be accepted. All in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Councillor Marsh.
Yes, one of the items for the committee of the whole, and that is the item 2.2, 2.2F, decision of licensing tribunal. I don't have a conflict, but I did declare a conflict of interest at the time because I had prior knowledge of the issue, and so to be consistent, I will again declare a potential conflict.
Okay, thank you. So I do note that you are chairing committee of the whole today. Excuse me. So perhaps I'd suggest that you deal with the rest of the committee of the whole items, and then if you turn it back over to me, I'll deal with that last one.
Okay, should we close the committee of the whole and then take it in, deal with it in regular council again, or?
We'll probably leave it in committee of the whole. So.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, with the noted conflict, thank you very much. And council will note that there are a number of items of communication referred to file, both with respect to flag requests, one for Emancipation Month that already occurred, and one for Every Child Matters and the flag that will be flying to commemorate the National Day that I just spoke of earlier, the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. With that, we'll move into presentations, and we have Mary Jane Patterson and Patrick Gilbride here from REAP Green Solutions with their 2021 impact report.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you. I feel welcome. Mary Jane has the night off, so it'll just be me, unfortunately, so hopefully I can fill her ample shoes. I see the slides are already up, so I presume I just say next slide whenever I want to advance.
That's correct, Patrick.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so good evening, Mayor Vervanovich, municipal councilors and staff. I'm very happy to be here today and share with you some of the work we've been doing with your support. Next slide. As you may be aware, REAP's mandate is practical action in the community. Our work is guided now by a 10-year goal we adopted last year to support 10,000 meaningful actions by our participants. Next slide. In our first fiscal year since we announced this goal, we made it almost 10% of the way. We can also report nearly twice as many supportive actions that are part of each person's sustainability journey. For example, attending a tree workshop counts as a supportive action. Planting a tree in your yard is a meaningful action, something that may be large or small, but have a meaningful impact. Next slide. This past year, we helped local residents plant over 3,000 native plants, trees, and shrubs that sequester carbon in the soil, capture stormwater, as well as provide habitat for urban wildlife. Demand for these programs is strong and growing, pun intended. Next slide. We continue to raise awareness of the role of rain gardens in reducing stormwater runoff. And this year we supported homeowners in designing and installing 12 such gardens. As you know, we're also supporting residents in safeguarding our water resources on the outside and inside of their homes. In particular, we work closely with the region and local utilities to deliver wet home water reviews. During those home visits, we installed 216 measures on the spot that save water immediately and going forward. And over half of those were done in Kitchener. Next slide. One of the most important milestones for our whole community this past year was the development of our long-term climate action strategy endorsed by Council in June. The plan calls for us to transform the ways we move, build, consume, and relate to one another. A number of REAP's programs and services directly align with these goals. Next slide. Home energy evaluations are one such example, supporting homeowners in making their homes more energy efficient. And a special thanks to Kitchener Utilities for their support in subsidizing the cost of home energy evaluations for their customers. Transitioning into this year, the federal Greener Homes program launched this past spring, and we are grateful to see those incentives helping to spur greater uptake of home energy upgrades. Next slide. Last year was the end of our two-year Project Neutral initiative. In the second year of the program, close to 850 people logged on to find out what their carbon footprint was and how to shrink it. Not everyone follows up with us, but the ones that did reported over 100 climate actions taken through participation in the Project Neutral tool. Next slide. We managed to hold 3 in-person events this last year with physical distancing in place. Otherwise, COVID pushed our workshops online. And it was really interesting to see how many more people could participate that way, including appealing to audiences in other parts of Ontario, Canada, and even the world. Next slide. Our annual Zero Waste Challenge attracted participation even during COVID, and we were inspired by the posts people shared about what they learned in the process. You will note that I happen to have a couple mason jars already handy here. I haven't decided yet whether to do the 7-day challenge, which starts on October 16th, or take the plunge for the 30-day challenge, which runs for most of October, wisely ending the day before Halloween. Regardless of which challenge you choose, the point is to have fun with it and to be more mindful and just a little more intentional with your household waste. Next slide. The chart on this slide shows our expenses at a glance. And you can really get a sense of the diversity of the programs that we offer that address both climate change mitigation and adaptation. Next slide. Looking ahead, watch for 3 new initiatives coming this year that fulfill a community need and get people engaged. Firstly, the local chapter of Tree Trust will provide professional arborist care for legacy trees funded through donations. Next, we're collaborating with all of our municipalities to design a home energy retrofit program for Waterloo Region, including financing for loans. And thirdly, Project Neutral is entering a new phase, working with high school students to cut carbon at home. Next slide. As we end this report on the fiscal year ending March 31st, we can't resist updating this bar to show how many more meaningful actions our community has taken through our program since April 1st. We are well on our way to 10,000 actions, and we see how important that vision of a resilient, low carbon future is to all of us. Next slide. We end with our most important message. Thank you. None of the work we do would be possible without your support. It gives us the capacity to create and find the programs we bring to our community and the resources to keep them going. So thank you. And a special thanks to Kitchener Utilities for their contributions to our core funding. We also want to say a very special thanks to the City of Kitchener staff whom we get to work with on a regular basis. Justin Redmond, Samantha Tavener, Nick Golan, Samantha Brickman, Niall Lobley, and Joshua Shea. And from Kitchener Utilities, Greg St. Louis and Michelle Campus. Together, we're helping people live more sustainably. So that's the end of my presentation, and I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Great, thank you very much, Patrick, for coming in. Are there any questions for Mr. Gilbride? No. Well, don't tell don't tell your colleague that, because every time she comes, we usually have lots of questions for Mary Jane. I think everyone's being shy tonight. But Patrick, I really do want to take this opportunity to thank Mary Jane, yourself, and the entire team at REAP for the great work that you do as an organization, but also the great work that you do collaboratively together with others in the community, particularly as we work towards our new climate change objectives that us and other communities approved back several weeks ago. Mary Jane's had a long history with REAP and in partnerships with the cities, and it's something that I know all of council and our staff truly value and appreciate. So please pass that on, and best wishes and good luck as you continue your work.
Thank you very much. I will pass that on to Mary Jane and the entire team. So thanks so much. And
Awesome. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. Bear with me 1 second. Last part of the agenda there. We'll now move on to delegations. And our first delegation is our auditors, Matthew Bennett and Courtney Cheel. Council will recall that we moved the one item from audit committee straight to council this evening. So we'll hear from Matthew and Courtney and then ask any relevant questions. Welcome.
Thank you so much. So I will start, if you wouldn't mind just going down a couple pages to the executive summary. Thank you very much for having us here. Take just a little bit to go through our presentation. So I'll talk about a couple things on this slide first. So materiality, we've determined that the group materiality will be 9.4 million. The materiality for the main city
I think we've lost Courtney there. Can everyone else hear me? Yeah. Okay, so it's not me.
Hi, Mayor, it's Matt Beddick here as well.
Yes.
Okay, great, you can hear me. So I don't know what happened to Court. Pardon me?
I said, do you want to jump in and take over?
Yeah, I'll take over. I'll do the best I can.
And
I'm back. It just kicked me out for some
Okay.
reason.
Okay, welcome.
That.
No worries.
So,
Technology doesn't always do what you want it to do.
no. All right. So the City of Kitchener is a consolidated entity, as you know, and so in it there are 6 components that are audited by us. The majority of them are through their own independent audits. And so I'll talk a little bit more about this on page 4. Our audit is risk focused. And so there are a few areas of focus that I will go into more detail about. So if you go to the next page, probably actually the page after that. So this is a page I'll just talk about our materiality. So as I mentioned, the main City of Kitchener component materiality is 8 million. In prior year, it was 7 million. So it has increased by a year. But if you look at the percentage of the benchmark used, it's 2.03%, which is a bit lower than prior year. The benchmark is total revenues of prior year, which was 462 million last year. So on the next slide. So as I mentioned, it is a consolidated entity. So within the City of Kitchener, there are 6 components, and we do individual audits on these components. As well, we do a special audit on the City of Kitchener Gasworks enterprise, as well on the trust funds of the City of Kitchener, which are not consolidated within the main City of Kitchener financial statements. If you go to the next slide. So the next few pages I'll talk about the fraud risks. So the first one is the fraud risk over revenue recognition. So the professional standards require us to evaluate the fraud risk within revenue recognition. And if we feel like it actually isn't a significant risk, we can rebut it. We have done this for the city of Kitchener, which is consistent with prior year. It's normally associated with for-profit enterprises, and the majority of revenue is calculated based on impact data, approved utility rates, user fees. It's not really subject to complexity or judgment. And so we feel that there's a very low risk of a fraud risk in revenue. So we have rebutted this. If you could go to the next slide. So this fraud risk is fraud risk resulting from management override of controls. This risk is not rebuttable. It's in every single audit that we do. And this essentially says, even with the best controls at the city, they can be overridden by management. And so we perform procedures around this risk which are testing of journal entries and performing a retrospective review on estimates and looking at any significant unusual transactions that occur during the year. On the next page. So these are our areas of focus. The first one is post-employment benefits. The reason why this is an area of focus is that it is an estimate, and judgments, there are significant judgments used by management, and it is a complex accounting standard that's used in guidance. Our audit approach, so we communicate with management's actuarial specialists and rely on their work. The city uses Mondellis Actuarial. We'll assess the reasonableness of the assumptions used in the report, and we'll also test the appropriateness of the underlying data, including employee populations that are given to the actuaries to perform their assessment. The next page. The next one's tangible capital assets, and the reason for this is you have about almost $1.5 billion of assets, and so it is a significant account balance. There is a risk of an error of inappropriately recognizing costs as either capital or operating as well. So our audit approach will discuss capitalization policies with management. As well, we'll test a sample of capital additions to ensure that they are actual capital additions and shouldn't be expensed. And then we'll also look on the other side in the repairs and maintenance and other similar accounts to ensure that there were no capital assets that were expensed during the year that should have been capitalized. On the next page. So the last other area of focus is the obligatory reserve fund revenue and deferred revenue. So the reason why this is an area of focus is the revenue recognized specifically from the development charge reserve fund. It's subject to judgment as capital projects, must be growth related in nature. So our audit approach will test controls around the recording of revenues and cash receipts. Cash receipt from developers. Will perform testing over amounts being recognized as revenue by ensuring the projects which the development charges are allocated to are appropriate and the related expenditure has incurred. And then lastly, we'll perform testing over the collections of development charges recorded in the deferred revenue account. And then the next page. So these are some other areas of focus and some of the procedures that we do perform on them. I won't go into details about these, but this is here for your information. Next page. So this is our key milestones and deliverables. So this month we'll be doing our planning as well as this presentation to you guys. In November, we'll do some interim field work, and then our year-end field work will begin in March and go to April 2022, and we'll report to your findings in June. So on the next page, and the remaining of the presentation. I won't go through this in detail. This is more so for information for you. But if you guys have any questions, I can answer those now.
Okay, it looks like we do have some questions. Councillor Gazzola.
I did want to ask about, I was reviewing this earlier. Can you point out anything on these new standards that will affect the city, as far as you know at this point?
So I would say probably all of them will. I believe the asset retirement obligation will be probably the most significant to the city. That was pushed, deferred a year because of COVID-19. So there are a few more years before that is put in place. But there will be a lot of work looking at what asset retirement obligations you have.
So it's more a matter of the amount of work that we have to do to report to our taxpayers, as opposed to incurring costs for things. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, these will already be at the city right now. It's just now you have to account for them.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Gazzola. If you want to continue then. Courtney,
Sorry?
did you have anything more or?
Nope.
Oh, that's it?
Yes.
Okay, and Mr. Bedick have anything else? No? Yes? Mr. Bedick? Oh, did we lose Matthew?
Yeah, we're on a roll.
we always get one of the two of you, so I guess that's the good thing. So is that the end of your presentation then?
It is, yes.
Okay. Are there any other questions from council? Okay, I guess that's it then.
Awesome. Well,
Wonderful.
thank you very much for having us here.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Thank you, you too. Okay, we'll move on to item 6.2. Yes.
I don't mean to interrupt, but if you wouldn't mind just dealing with the audited financial statements and moving second
Oh,
that item.
sorry, thank you. Does somebody care to move that? Councillor Davies, seconded by Councillor Galloway-Seelock. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We'll now move on then to item 6.2, which is DSD report 21-124. And we have Mr. Scott Patterson, actually, who had a written submission, and he's also here as a delegation. Welcome, Mr. Patterson.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. Yes, Scott Patterson from Patterson Planning Consultants, here again tonight in support of the project on North Hill Place and 29 Chicopee Terrace. Just following up on some matters that came in Planning Committee last week, where the developer was asked to consider certain items for the project. Earlier today, I did submit a letter to the city outlining that we're in agreement to provide the 8-foot privacy fence along the common property line with the existing homes on Chicopee Terrace. We are also in agreement to provide a chain link fence to prevent trespass between GRCA lands and the development project. And lastly, we are committed through the City of Kitchener's approval process to address all stormwater management items through the approval of plans, through construction and eventual inspections. So those are the three items I believe we were tasked to respond back to committee and council with, and I hope I did that accordingly. But if there's any other questions from council tonight, I'd be happy to try and answer them. But in closing, we are again in full support of the staff report and recommendation, and would ask for council support as well of the draft plan approval and the demolition control. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for that. I don't see, oh, I do see a question. Councillor Schneider.
Thank you. Thank you for speaking tonight, and thank you for sending that information and for being amenable for the fencing and the stormwater management issues and the regulations. You're going to meet them all. This just popped into my head. I know with the demolition of the property to create the access, I'm just wondering, I don't want you don't need to commit to it, but just hoping that if there's any way to salvage some of the material and provide it to Habitat for Humanity, that would be appreciated.
Through your worship, by all means, that's something that I can take back to the developer and request of them. I know he's watching this meeting tonight, so he can hear firsthand what you just suggested. And on other projects, he has done that. So I'm happy to take that to him and go forward on that basis.
Okay, thank you for that. And that there doesn't appear to be any further questions, Mr. Patterson.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks. Councillor Singh, did you want to bring that item forward?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So it's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Marsh.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? If not, oh, Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Mayor. I wonder if Eric Schneider from Planning just might speak. One of the other issues that we sought information on was costing. I know that there's a wish from residents that North Hill Place would be the access road. We learned of some of that cost during the last meeting, but we asked for the cost of totally reconstructing the road and some of the other issues. So I wonder if Eric might be able to speak to that, just so council has an awareness of the financial implications of using North Hill Drive for the access road.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Schneider. And through the mayor, I do have a brief update on those items that were requested at committee last week. So council had asked for a few items for information purposes to get a better sense of a few specific items. Firstly is the cost of the road construction. At committee last week, I'd stated that the cost for new services to North Hill Place would be approximately $1.5 million. I've spoken with engineering staff, and that cost would increase to about 1.75 million for the reconstruction, and that would include the additional asphalt and streetlights. That cost still doesn't include the price of the land, if possible, to acquire from Chicopee Ski Hill and the Grand River Conservation Authority. Second item for update is development charges. The development charges paid for 14 single detached dwellings in the vacant land condominium development after the credit for the 4 existing homes would be approximately $518,000. The third update is for property taxes. So just a reminder, it's difficult to estimate the dwellings' assessed values before they're constructed. However, we used an average of the surrounding neighborhood and the homes in that area as a basis for this. Property owners in this area pay approximately $3,600 a year in property taxes for 14 new dwellings. That would come up to $50,400 per year in property taxes. And the subject property's current tax bill is approximately $6,500 a year. So in relation to the items that Mr. Patterson just spoke to, staff has prepared a written statement for a possible motion that would include those items to be included. And that's the fence for privacy, the fence for, and yeah, it looks like it's up on the screen. So that's great. You can read it there. The fence for privacy, the fence for trespass, encroachment, and the stormwater management items. Thank you.
Councillor Schneider, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. And this is not a question, but just comments. I really want to thank Eric and Garrett Stevens from our planning department, and a special thanks to the residents of Chicopee Terrace. We did have a really full meeting, and we've tried to address as many of these as these issues as possible. I've also spoken with our traffic department about the traffic increase and received some great information from them as well. Volta Avenue, Chicopee Terrace are both designed to carry higher volumes of traffic than are existing currently. And the generation of new traffic is reasonable from what the experts in our traffic department are saying. According to them, 14 homes would mean an increase of up to 140 vehicle trips to the daily volume. The current volume on Scenic Drive is 220 vehicles a day. So even adding the two together, the daily vehicle volume is typical of a local crescent or a cul-de-sac. So, these issues were brought up, and I really want to thank, staff for responding to them. And the costs to make this access from North Hill Drive are very, very high. And it's difficult because as city councilor, yes, you want to look after the needs of your ward residents, but you also have to be aware of the costs that will affect the city overall. So I just wanted to bring that out there, and once again, really thank the residents and our staff for and Scott and others from the developer who were out there to answer the questions. So thank you for that.
Thank you. So with that, all those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried.
Mr. Mayor, so that included the amendment. Would that have been the amendment? What was shown on screen, or would that be part of the main motion?
I guess I took it as part of the main motion, but did you want it dealt with
Oh,
separately?
I'm okay with it. I just want to make sure that that's also approved as well. So if it's as part of the main motion, that's fine.
Yeah.
Unless Councillor Schneider wants to move that individually. So that's the reason why I'm.
Okay, Councillor Schneider, did you?
Yeah, I just want to be sure that is part of the overall motion. Mayor, if you feel that that's the way, we maybe want to get clerk's input on this, if we want to vote on that as an amendment to the main motion.
You know what, actually, maybe we will deal with it separately, only because the main motion is actually coming out of committee. So let's deal with the amendment first. Is there a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Johnson, all those in favor of the amendment? Any opposed? That's carried. So the main motion is moved by Councillor Singh and seconded by Councillor Marsh as amended. All those in favor? Any opposed? That too is carried. Okay, we'll now move on to delegation with respect to an item on the committee of the whole agenda with respect to 12.2 E, an appeal with respect to payday loan establishment. And the delegation is Tina May from Floaters Incorporated. Welcome, Ms. May.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So you have 5 minutes to make your presentation, Ms. May.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Councils. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Tina May and my husband is Chris Farrell. We are the only family independently owned and operated payday advance company in Kitchener, operating in downtown since 2001. Through honesty, integrity, hard work, and a little bit of luck, we took over ownership in 2016, investing all of our life savings and even more. We are governed by the Ministry of Government and Consumer Services. The annual license fee is $900. We follow all rules and regulations, have never had an infraction, charge, or Better Business Bureau complaint against us. The only payday loan company that is a KW Chamber member. We hand out Christmas gifts to over 200 people every year, hats and mitts every winter in the cold. We volunteer at the Ray of Hope. We local food banks and churches. We filled purses with personal hygiene products for women in shelters, even bought and complete turkey dinners for families in need during the holidays. We are here to help our customers and genuinely care about each and every one of them, regardless of other franchises apparently preying on the weak and the vulnerable and somehow charging unnecessarily fees. We do not. A new type of business license was created in 2019 by the City of Kitchener to regulate payday loan establishments in Kitchener, as permitted by an update of the Municipal Act. This update allows municipalities to regulate payday loan establishments through business licensing. The new licensing classification will eventually reduce the number of establishments to a maximum of 10 citywide through attrition, a process of making somebody or something, especially your enemy, weaker by repeatedly attacking them or creating problems for them. Planning approval by the city, police record checks, proof of current and valid license under the Payday Loans Act, proof of insurance, cannot be located within 150 meters of another licensed payday loan establishment, cannot be located within 150 meters of any gaming establishment, cannot be located within 150 meters of any addiction or gambling counseling service, and with no more than 2 establishments within a single ward. The 18 payday loan establishments at the time were allowed to continue renewing their licenses on an annual basis, so long as they maintain ownership, annually renew their licenses of $375, remain in the same location, continuously comply with all municipal, provincial, and federal legislation, and remain in compliance with Schedule 17.1 of the Payday Loan Establishments Act. Currently, there are 12 payday loan establishments in Kitchener. We are one of them. On July 2nd, we were given a 60-day termination notice after 18 years in Market Square at that location. Of no fault of our own, we need to relocate. Conestoga College is now going to make the space into classrooms. As outlined above by the City of Kitchener, we must remain in the same location, but we cannot. We asked for an exemption to the rule and were denied due to the fact that our business does not fit the housekeeping amendment set out by the city. A location at 78 King Street West, which is one of the original 18 locations, no longer holds a license, never renewed due to the overwhelming rules and regulations, has office space available, close proximity, is affordable, and is best suited for our business. We want to remain in business and be allowed to grow while continuing to support downtown Kitchener and our loyal customers. Some people don't have bank accounts, nor do they want them. You can't go to the bank and borrow $100 or $200 until your next payday. Sometimes it's just a little bit of extra money to get you through with groceries. The car is broken down, you need to get to work, and an unexpected dental or vet bill shows up. We've helped in these situations. The banks don't, and not everybody has a credit card that they can use. This is our livelihood. We stand to lose everything if our license is not renewed. This is how 4 of us support ourselves and feed our families. Hundreds of our customers will attest to our kind, caring, helpful, above average customer service, and the many times we've went above and beyond and out of our way to help. We offer not only a payday advance, but friendship and understanding. At this time, I'd like to ask the council to please reconsider our request to renew our City of Kitchener business license at the 78 King Street West location and allow us to remain open for business. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. May. There are some questions. Councillor Ioannidis.
Thank you, Mayor Urbanovic, and thank you, Ms. May, for coming in. So the only reason why this is being triggered right now is because you're forced to relocate in a different location.
That's the only reason, yes.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, when the time's appropriate, I'd like to move a motion to recommend the approval of their license in their new location.
Okay, I will come back to you. I don't see any other questions, so I'll ask Ms. May. I was going to ask the question that Councillor Ioannidis asked, but the secondary question is, you're moving, I understand, into a location that was previously licensed
Yes.
as a payday loan and is now a gold shop.
Correct. On one side of the office, he would do the buying of gold, and I believe he cashes checks, buying gold, cashing checks. On the other side, we would be doing payday loans.
So the two of you would be occupying one existing storefront in downtown. So like in moving, we're actually reducing a storefront in the process, because in reality, there were two.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, we would be completely separate businesses, completely separate entities, one storefront.
Okay. Thank you. I do have a question for staff. Thank you, Ms. May. There aren't any other questions for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I do have a question. And just as we look at this issue, in the report, Ms. Phylactou, it talks about, obviously I supported the bylaw when we put it in place. I think it made a lot of sense then and still does. But it was really designed to prevent people from relocating businesses, selling businesses, and it probably didn't contemplate an expansion of a college. I understand why you're recommending what you are, but is it possible that we could simply, instead of ending one licensing and starting another, is another mechanism for us to consider to simply, relocate the existing license to this address, in light of the fact that it was licensed for it before and the circumstances?
Thank you, Mayor. For this specific business, we would consider it a new business. As Ms. May alluded to, 78 King Street surrendered their license a couple years ago. So it isn't a payday loan license anymore. It is a new business moving in there. And if any work needs to happen to the business to get it to look like Floaters Inc., if there's construction or anything like that, there are going to be inspections that are required as part of it. So we wouldn't consider it a renewal, as our licenses are non-transferable. So we would consider this one a new license.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Davey.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to be clear, like I was very much in support of the bylaw change, but again, this is definitely a unique situation, so I just want to be careful in this. Ms. Phylactou, I would assume that regardless of what we do here, it's not going to be any sort of precedent-setting, appealable thing that a future payday loan can come in and do it without our authority or appeal it to any body. Is that correct?
Through you, Mayor, that's not something I can say for sure would not happen. There are other payday loans that have looked at coming to Kitchener that we have denied based on the bylaw and the regulations within the bylaw, as we saw them as new businesses, the same way we're applying that to Floaters, although I understand it's a relocate for them. I can't say if somebody else will take that opportunity to come back to council to appeal those decisions.
Okay, but again, it would be entirely in council's purview. There's no third appealable board, and we wouldn't be bound by any precedent as far as,
I don't believe so, no.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Marsh.
Yeah, so I was very much in support of the bylaw that we put in place, but I really feel for the business owners, and through no fault of their own, they are required to relocate. Question for staff is just if we do proceed with allowing them to have a relocation, is there any way that we can ensure that it's not an expansion of the previous business, or in any way like an expansion, I guess, is my biggest question.
Ms. Vlactu?
Through you, Mayor. The only thing we would be able to regulate is we don't regulate gross floor area within the bylaw to know the size of the payday loan is going to be. So I don't have anything I can regulate under the licensing bylaw. That would all have to be done through the building code. We would be able to regulate that they're not opening an additional location in conjunction with keeping their current location open, but not the actual size of the new location.
Right. So if in between the time we make a decision and the move, if the college decided after all, oh, wait a minute, we will allow that space, then we wouldn't allow now an additional location. So as long as our decision were one and not two. Okay. And okay, those are all the questions. Thank you.
Councillor Michaud. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry, Councillor Michaud, you're next.
Okay. I have a question for staff. How many other payday loan type businesses are left in the city right now?
There are currently 14 licensed payday loans.
So if another payday loan place, had to leave, or was bought out of their space that they're leasing, would this be the precedent that Councillor Davey just spoke to, that we'd be setting?
If it is the same ownership, the same situation that they didn't have a choice but to have it to move, they will likely come back and ask for an appeal to council.
Okay, thank you.
The same process.
Thank you.
Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, I may have missed this detail, but I understand there's a distance that there has to be between one payday loan store and another one. Is there any conflict there? Like, I presume that the current site was grandfathered in, so there might be a conflict, but is there a conflict?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. There would not be a conflict with the minimum distance.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Ioannidis, you indicated you were prepared to move an exemption in this instance. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Schneider, any comments? Councillor Schneider.
Yeah, I just want to thank the Deltina for coming in and speaking. This is and it's an unfortunate situation in that they're forced to move their location. It sounds like they have been exemplary business owners and supporting good things in our community. So I want to acknowledge and thank them for that. There's sometimes the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. And I think, our regulations are set up wisely. But in this case, I think, they have to move because of a situation that is beyond their control. And I feel that supporting Councillor Ioannidis' motion is a good thing to do.
Thank you. Councillor Ioannidis, do you want to speak last, or do you want me to go first?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I can go now. You can go after.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I really feel like council is in a position sometimes when we make regulations and bylaw amendments, it doesn't always account for everything that certain circumstances. And I know as a council, we're here to help support businesses and not hamper businesses. And I think it's a unique situation here. And so I hope that everyone can support the recommendation.
Thanks. Councillor Johnson.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to just say as well that I see this as Councillor Ryan has just said, supporting a local family, a local small business. And if an issue like this ever comes forward again, we deal with each of these situations on a situation by situation basis, and so I will be supporting this as well. And I'm very thankful that she came in tonight to speak to us. Thank you.
Okay, those are all the comments. I'll just make a couple. I will be supporting the recommendation. I think, as has been noted, the bylaw was brought into place for good reason. And I think the principles still hold true. When I look at this particular situation, as has been noted, the owner here has to relocate their business because of something that, quite frankly, we're quite happy about. I mean, we welcome the college into downtown and welcome the impact that additional students have in our downtown, and want to see it continue to thrive. In this particular instance, we have not a corporate entity that's across the country, but rather a small local business. And in the end, while we're not decreasing the number of overall locations right now, we are decreasing our storefronts, and we're also not moving the business from one ward into another, which could arguably be problematic as well. So in light of all of those things, I'm prepared to consider the exemptions, the exemption in this instance. So all those in favor of the motion? Any opposed? That's carried. Ms. May, your exemption has been granted, and if you can work with Ms. Falaktu, she can help facilitate your new license application and the approval process to go with it. Okay, we'll now move into reports of the committees, and we will start with Finance and Corporate Services. Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Sorry, just 1 second to get to the right area here. Okay, thank you very much. It's been moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Galloway-Sealock that the 4 items from Finance and Corporate Services Committee be adopted. I would just say of note, there are 2, one being the new terms of reference and the broadening of the mandate from what was once known as the Cycling and Trails Advisory Committee to look at a broader perspective in terms of active transportation and trails. And also very importantly is the introduction of a new grant program for Black, Indigenous, and racialized communities in Kitchener. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Davey. Any comments? If not, I don't believe I accommodated committee, so I'll just briefly say how pleased I am with the work that has been done on the grant program that Councillor Davey just referenced by approving an annual budget for 3 years. It allows us to start the program, to start it in a way that's reasonable, and where in fact we are taking some other existing funding and reallocating it for this purpose, but also recognizes that the demand may be deeper, and as we learn and go along the way, we may need to revisit that in the future. But starting this fall, we'll be able to start giving people the opportunity to apply for grants that I know I know there's a lot of interest amongst the Black, Indigenous, and racialized groups and organizations in the community, and they will welcome the opportunity. Councillor Schneider. No, you're good. Okay, so it has been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried unanimously. Councillor Singh, Planning and Strategic Initiatives.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just the remaining items moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Lynch.
Thank you. Any questions? If not, all those in favor? Any opposed? That too is carried unanimously. Unfinished business. New business. Regional Council update. You know, really there, I think probably just touch on a couple things very briefly in the Regional Council update. Obviously, the region together with their staff have been working on the implementation of the province's new vaccine requirements for accessing facilities in the community. That obviously those regulations only were made available last Tuesday afternoon. So it's been a bit of a challenge for everyone who's been dealing with that. And I want to acknowledge the work of not only our staff, but also the intermunicipal, interdepartmental teams that have been dealing with it, particularly the recreational leads. And I know Ms. Kugler and others have done yo person service on dealing with that issue. You know, work continues to be done on seeing the vaccine rates go up, and want to use this opportunity to just remind everyone, if you haven't gone for your first or your second vaccine yet, please, you know, make available to yourselves either the locations in Cambridge and at the boardwalk, the vaccine bus that continues to work its way around and was at RibFest actually yesterday afternoon, or obviously your physician and pharmacies within the region, which are you know, and all of these are often walk-in situations where you can get your shot right away. I see some questions, so I'll go to those. Councillor Singh.
Sorry, I was just queuing in for questions and answers.
Oh, okay. Councillor Davey.
Yeah, actually on this, and forgive me if my timing's off, Mr. Mayor, we're just hoping for an update, just because I've had some constituents ask as well about the region dealing with the banning or revising or restricting election signs on regional properties. So if there's any update on that or timing, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did deal with it at committee last week, and the direction subject to being ratified at council on Wednesday is that this federal election will in fact be the last election that would have signs permitted on regional road right-of-ways. Well, I guess the final opportunity will be when the bylaw actually comes back to council, which the draft bylaw would come back in late fall, and there would be an opportunity for delegations to speak either for or against at that time as well. But the request of staff has been to draft a bylaw that would prohibit them.
And sorry, was that federal only, or is that all election signs?
All election signs would no longer be permitted on regional road right-of-ways. As you know, they're currently not permitted on municipal road right-of-ways. So the only place they would be permitted is on private property.
Very good, thank you.
On this issue, Councillor Schneider, or on something else?
On this issue, I know it's election signs, but would that include any other signs, like from pizza places, golf shows, things like that?
So as I understand it, and I'm not sure if there's anyone that can actually speak to that this evening, but there are already regulations in place around where those kinds of signs are or are not permitted. And that's administered, through bylaw. But as you know, they often end up getting put up quicker than they can get put down. I don't know if anyone from staff can respond, or maybe they can get us an answer subsequently. I don't believe there's anyone here, so we can make sure that staff sends a note to council on your question specifically, Councillor Schneider, tomorrow. Councillor Michaud on this? No, different issue. Okay, so nothing else on that. Questions and answers, Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and just want to more so flag this. I think more in-depth conversation would be helpful down the road as well. But I wanted to ask staff regarding soft intensification when speaking to helping with affordable housing. I know that council recently approved the ADU units, so additional dwelling units in backyards. But also, I think the bylaw or the change also would allow for laneway homes as well. So as we see new development happening on the outskirts of our city and new subdivisions being formulated, are staff already outlining or addressing wanting to see laneways as additional to neighborhood street right of ways as well, so that down the road there could be an opportunity for residents to have laneway homes?
Probably Mr. Reedman, that one's, or Ms. Bustamante. I don't know who wants to take it.
Through the mayor, I can answer that. So most of our subdivisions now are not constructed with laneways. However, if the lot sizes allow for it, the backyard homes could still be constructed in those locations. So we've worked with fire and bylaw services to understand the parameters for what a laneway house could look like or a backyard home. And so, there's a lot of zones where that is allowed. And so I don't have the specific number off the top of my head, but they would be permitted, in a lot of residential zones, even in new subdivisions.
No, I appreciate that. And that's more so of, backyard dwellings, but just having more access, laneways done, in other parts of the country as well, or even if looking at other larger metropolitans that are starting to look as a solution to affordable housing of laneway. Again, I reference softer intensification. Our staff starting to have conversation with developers as they bring forward their subdivision applications to want to see laneways as part of the full design. And again, if the answer is not there, staff can perhaps outline if this is something that information can be brought back to council at a later point, so that as a whole, we can have that conversation wanting to see that type of development happening in the core. Again, now's the opportunity to design the city the way we want to see it, as opposed to seeing most of the city being built out and then retroactively looking back.
Through the mayor, so I'll connect with staff. I wasn't anticipating this question today, and so I do know the regional official plan work is underway, and then that will trigger us to look at our City of Kitchener official plan. But yeah, our accessory dwelling unit bylaw does allow laneway houses right now, but it just depends. I think what you're getting at is actually providing those laneways, and so it's something that I'll talk to staff about and our operations team about as well.
And no criticism to staff if you didn't have an answer to my question. As I said early on, as a preamble, I just wanted to raise this as a discussion point, and I'm sure a more lengthy conversation needs to be had, and I look forward to that. So thank you, Mr. Weedman.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Michaud.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just first want to thank staff for the drive slow signs, that slow down signs that were handed out this last Friday. The constituents in Ward 4 are very happy about this. I'm wondering if there's anybody on tonight that could give us just a brief update on the 40-kilometer traffic study and where things are at with that.
Mr. Reedman.
To the mayor, so staff will be reporting back with the results of the pilots later this year before the end of 2021.
Is that it, Councilor Michaud?
Sorry, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, great. That appears to be all the questions and answers. So thank you, everyone. We'll move on then to first and second reading of the bylaws. And it's been moved by Councillor Chapman, seconded by Councillor Galloway-Seelock. The lead be given the mover and seconder to introduce the bylaws listed on the agenda. And I'll just ask the clerk in a moment if there's any others, but and that the same be taken as read a first time and second time and stand referred to committee of the whole. Madam Clerk, are there any additional bylaws?
There are none, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So with that, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. It's been moved by Councillor Marsh. The council resolve itself into committee of the whole. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Councillor Marsh, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So let's begin with the tenders. May I have a mover for the 3 tenders? Councillor Singh. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Next, we're going to deal with the administrative reports. So the first one is the one that we already dealt with. So the next one is the debt issue revision. Do I have a mover for that one? Councillor Davey, any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Next is the budget schedule revision. That's 1.2. Or is it 12.C? 12C. And do I have a mover? Oh, Mayor Urbanovic, and you have a question?
Yes, I do. And I guess it's a question of staff and a question of council. Having a bit of a challenge this year because the region has also scheduled some budget dates that are on municipal dates. And so we're trying to do some juggling. And so my question of council is our November 29th date, which is a Monday. And now we've added some stuff to that date. The stuff from October 18th plus what was already scheduled. Could we do that day on November 30th and the Tuesday instead of the Monday? Could that work for people?
All right. So maybe do you want to move that we change it or is this a committee of the whole vote perhaps?
Yeah, so I mean, it would be a further change to all the other changes that are already on that list, unless we hear there's some major problems, because I don't want to make problems for other people. But I have a conflict with regional budget that day.
Okay, so why don't we put that on the table as an amendment to that, and then we'll vote on it after all the questions are answered. Okay.
Yep.
All right, Councillor Davey, you're next.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is probably the appropriate time to bring it up. But in the past, not recently, but in the, for those of us that remember a bit back, we've often run into some issues in terms of public input night if we get too many people signing up. So I'm not sure how to phrase it exactly, but I was thinking since we already have the operating budget in the morning before that public input session, which would presumably be in the evening, if we could cap the number of delegates that we would take that evening to, I'll leave it to staff's discretion what an appropriate amount is. I'm thinking something like between 10 and 15. And should we have additional people that want to speak up to that night, then we would schedule a second public input session, just so we have the opportunity to ask questions. Again, I don't anticipate anything, but I was actually going to look at the 29th, but perhaps with Mayor Rabinovich's request, maybe we look at maybe the November 30th as an alternate date, should we go over that 10 to 15 number of delegates. So I look for staff to comment if that's something we can accommodate.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Lautenbach.
So through the chair, that's certainly something that we could do, and provide a time slot that aligns with a certain number of delegates in terms of giving them equal time to speak. And then if we did have more, we could use the 30th as that flow over as a tentative date if council is willing to make that amendment.
So
Thank you. I would move that, yeah.
Okay, so just to be clear, are you suggesting, Councillor Davey, that a penciled in second public input date that would only be a carryover, or that we would schedule two?
No, just schedule one. It's just in the event that we are oversubscribed on the first Monday. So it wouldn't be advertised. It would be like clerks would handle it in terms of overflow.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. So we'll vote on that. And Mayor Rabinovic is suggesting November 30th as an alternate date. But then you mentioned that date also. So I guess we'll just have to find an additional date. All right. Councillor Galloway-Sealock.
Yeah, my question with regards to November 30th, is that looking only at a day meeting, or is that an evening meeting as well? Especially now that Councillor Davies mentioning maybe I think I have more conflicts in the evenings than I do during the day. So I can make the day work, but evenings are difficult for me. So I just put that out there.
So my suggestion was only the day for budget.
Okay. And it's just so we're clear, you're suggesting just move everything from the 29th over to the 30th, which was capital budget and the WIP utility rates and gas rates?
Yes.
Yeah. So then we'd need a new.
Unless we want, unless we wanted to split it up and do part of it on the 29th and part of it on the 30th, but I know people like to usually get it over with in one day.
Okay. All right, so we have a conflict on the evening of the 30th. All right, thank you, Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, I have a conflict in the morning on the 30th.
Okay.
Any Tuesday in the morning is going to be a problem for me up to that.
Okay. So we're gonna maybe have to take that decision about the 29th offline, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah, well, let's take it offline and we'll work with staff and council on it and bring that part of it back for the next meeting.
Okay, clear as mud. So we're going to vote on the revised schedule with a caveat that we're going to come back and look at the 29th, and we're going to look at an additional penciled in public input date that we want to make sure everybody has in their calendars so they are available if and when we need to use it. But let's do that using Doodle or whatever else staff can connect with us on. Okay, so based on the revised, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
I was just going to ask really quickly here, how do people feel about a split scenario if we did do part of it the 29th and part of it on the 30th?
Part of what?
Part of budget.
The 30th, we have a conflict in the morning.
In the morning and in the evening. So I'm just asking, how do people feel about splitting things up, or do you prefer to get it all done in one day?
Any comments on that, Councillor Michaud?
I don't mind splitting it up. It's just one evening and one part of a day would be better than splitting up 2 days in a row for myself, if that's possible.
Okay, Councillor, I didn't see the order, so we're just going to go. Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Marsh. I mean, for me, it's just important to have people be heard. And I think if you have too much at one time, sometimes, you know, on a longer day, it's hard to retain and take everything in. So, I mean, I would prefer splitting it up and maybe people have the option of speaking in the afternoon or evening for the delegation, whatever their choice or preference would be for that. So whatever it takes to hear everybody and to get all the input, I'm happy to follow.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Ioannidis.
Well, myself, I would prefer one day, but whatever happens, we'll work with it.
Thanks for your flexibility. Councillor Johnston.
Yes, thank you, Chair Marsh. And, you know, I have heard from residents about this, and I actually sent the notes from tonight's meeting to a couple of residents, and they were thrilled to see that we were looking at being flexible with our dates so that the information would be out ahead of them coming in to make presentations. So I think we're really moving in the right direction. So thankful to staff for looking at that. I think, as Councillor Schneider was saying, the more opportunities that we have for people, for us to be a little flexible, I think offering a couple of different dates for them to be able to come in according to their work schedules, and that too, I think is really important. So I would like to see us look at something that includes an evening and a day. Maybe it's not on the Tuesday morning. I also have problems actually with Tuesday morning meetings myself, but maybe the Tuesday afternoon and also do it on the 29th as well. I'm sure that between staff and us and taking this offline, we're going to be able to come up with something, but I think a couple of days is actually really good. Thanks.
Thank you. And I'll just add my comment that I agree with offering two different time slots, a daytime and an evening time. And who knows, maybe there'll be, better chance for people to engage. All right. So based on that conversation, let's vote on the proposed dates other than the 29th. Okay, so all in favor, oh, that was moved by Mayor Verbanovic. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. All right. Next up, we have the applications for cancellation, refund, and reduction of taxes. Do I have a mover for that one? Councillor Galloway-Sealock, any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. All right, the next one we've dealt with, and the next one I'm going to skip for a moment. So the last one that I will deal with is recommendations for interim nominating committee responsible for the selection of the Equity and Anti-Racism Advisory Committee membership. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Galloway-Sealock. Again, any questions or discussion? I'm so pleased to see this come before us. We're moving at a rapid pace here. So this is really exciting to see. Right. And so mover for that. Oh, sorry. Who's the mover for that? Councillor Galloway-Sealock, thank you. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. All right. Mayor Verbanovic, can I ask you to call for a mover for 12.2F?
Yes, thank you. So we'll deal with that item, and that's the decision of the licensing tribunal pertaining to 249 Duke Street East. And I believe it was councillors, I remember Gazzola and Michaud that were on that licensing tribunal. Do one of you want to move it? Councillor Michaud, thank you. And is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor? Any opposed? With the noted conflict, that is carried.
Okay, thank you.
You move that the committee rise and report.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. All right, it's been Sorry, it's not in front of me now. Here we go. It's been moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Schneider that the proceedings and the recorded pecuniary interests and conflicts taken in the meeting of the committee of the whole held this date as attached hereto and forming part of these minutes be and the same are hereby adopted and confirmed.
Oh, those in favor, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. It's been a long day. Motion for third reading of the bylaws. Moved by Councillor Johnson, second by Councillor Davy. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And motion to adjourn. Councillor Schneider, Councillor Johnson, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Have a wonderful rest of the week, folks, and we'll talk to you soon. Oh, yes, and